Okay. Let's continue the conversation where I kind of left off. Um,
Yeah.
where um, related to some Midwestuary things, but I kind of wanted to respond to the video that you had done and talk about how that might relate to bigger things. So part of it for me is that I practice a version of Christianity that I think is beautiful and gorgeous. And I've been brought into churches to show people some of what that is. And when I do, they go, wow, that's beautiful. That's gorgeous. They love the Jewish traditions. They think they're wonderful. And then they never do them themselves. So I'm doing this thing where I want other people to join, but much related to what you're saying, I can do something that I think is beautiful. And I, for half a second, I can convince people that it's beautiful, but I can't get them to do it themselves. Right. In your idea of like convincing people of what that looks like. But in believing in the sovereignty of God, I do believe that eventually it's going to be a massive movement within Christianity. Like the Orthodox, that I just feel I got to it first. And I'm like, no, no, no. When they're done with Orthodoxy, they're going to be towards this other thing. Like in the
Mhm.
spirits being like, no, 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 my spirit is not right now. But this thing that I'm a part of, that'll be a big thing in like, give it like 10, 15 years. And I think people are going to be talking a lot more about Passover. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the just listening to and believing our Eastern Orthodox convert friends, I think there's a political and a cultural dimension that they're having to sort through.
Yeah.
They want to see, let's just say it, they want to see uh, light-skinned dudes with beards and black cloaks. And they want some kind of like something that they could say, I could live into that. I could be that in 10 years. Uh, so I think messianic Noahidism just doesn't have the sort of handholds where they can
Yeah.
kind of immediately process in the short term their uh, disaffection with American culture, Anglo culture, that sort of thing, a loss of sense of masculine purpose. Like those are the
Yeah.
things that they're trying to navigate. Those are just more immediate concerns, frankly. As we heard in Chicago, we heard for the first time since people have been measuring this that religion is downstream of politics, which is crazy. Even in America, I'm hearing so many people
Mm.
whom I trust saying that a ton of people went to church last Sunday because of
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
political assassination that I've never, and at least I'm about to be 40, I've never in my lifetime experienced religion being downstream of politics. So that's the kind of thing that people are turning their way through. And I'd totally be down for if the final destination, the goal at the end of the rainbow being what you're up to, for sure.
Yeah, it's a bizarre sort of thing.
Mhm.
I've wondered about this. Let me be controversial about it. I love Luke Thompson, so let me talk about someone who I love. So
Yep.
these accusations are not towards someone who I don't love, but
Hmm.
he got caught up in Young, Restless, and Reform. And
Yep.
when Young, Restless, and Reform came in, I was like, oh, cool. And I watched some of the sermons and they were all right. You know, some of
Yep.
them I found interesting, but I didn't get caught up in that spirit. So it's interesting to see someone who's got caught up in more than one, um, like zeitgeist, more than one spirit of the age. A wind that has caught someone and blew them in this direction for 1 minute and now in another direction in another minute. And in that
Hmm.
way, you're almost saying, is there going to be a future wind that blows him in another direction? Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Oh
Again,
yeah,
trying to be respectful of Luke, of like,
well,
yeah,
he said that himself, right? That who knows where he'll be in a year.
right,
And I
right,
appreciate that fresh honesty that he and humility that he carries with him in that process. Even as he's convinced and championing um, the beliefs that he thinks are fundamental, that he's going to be fundamentalist about. He's still holding them lightly in a certain sense, better than other guys that we've seen. So I appreciate that about him.
Well, and self-awareness, and yeah, that stuff's good. Okay, let's talk flowers and dirt, because I thought you were going to do. I felt like that was an extension of a conversation I had with you at Midwestuary on the Sunday morning.
I think so. Yeah.
Is that when we talked about it? Okay, so I want to put it forward because it's an idea my wife introduced me to. My wife, who should be podcasting but doesn't. She's a very smart lady.
She's great.
Yeah. But she talked about this in relationship to theater, because I was doing this play, and the play was within a play, the play that I had corner people read. And there was an aspect of it that wasn't working before. So there is a scene that was, and people would have just experienced it as only a conversation. But when it was actually on stage, it was a sword fight. And it was that we did this thing, and it was a conversation. And Katie was like, there's too much talking. It's too thinky talky, right? And so we changed it to people sword fighting because of this philosophy that my wife was saying, which was that you want flowers. Flowers are beautiful. They're nice. They're gorgeous, but their roots are in shit. They're in feces, right? You literally, they need soil in order to be healthy. And if your soil is not healthy, you go to the store and you're just like, could you please give me the feces of an animal? And you pay them for the feces of an animal to spread that in your garden. So you need these rotting, dying, stinky things in order to get these flowers. And so in theater or in a movie or whatever, the way that my wife was saying it is like, you can have these nice thinky talky things, but they needed to be grounded in sex and violence and hatred and these deep-seated insecurities that even if you don't outright say them, they need to be grounded in that. So that play, if you listen to it, people talk about, one of the guys will say in passing, as though it's not important, about he uses a saying that a family member who died of cancer used. And he just says it in passing, like, oh, I had this uncle and he was dying and blah, blah, blah. And right before he died, he said this, right? Or like someone talks about like a divorce, but it's in passing. Like, so you get a sense of this deeper idea of the flowers they have roots, and what their roots are in is the opposite of flowers. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is embarrassing. I forgot that we had that conversation. We totally did. You're bringing it all back. So I totally stole that and co-opted it.
It's all right.
Turned it into fertilizer for a video I just made like 2 weeks after the fact. But you're totally right.
Well, yeah. My interest in it is because of how that actually layers onto what you're saying. I take no offense to people stealing any idea I stole from my wife in the first place. But the idea behind it in relationship to even this idea that the TLC is this place which is a healthy community, means that it has to be like, when you're talking about online communities and that we're not converting anyone, to me, it's that I am converting people, not online. Right? Yeah. I'm rooted in something completely separate from this.
That tracks. Yep.
And that's where the real stuff is happening. And then we come online and we're just sharing the flowers.
Yeah.
Right. And
no, you got it. That's exactly it. Mm-hmm.
Maybe
because we did our what Grim Grids taught us. We did our savings throws, and we're understanding that the internet is the internet. Which is not what the internet wants us to think. It wants us to think it's some kind of virtual reality, and we're not treating it that way, I think, which is good.
Yeah.
But that makes us insulated from anything other than this kind of frictionless enjoyment of each other's fruits. which is kind of what PLC's manifested itself as. And importantly, we thought, maybe you'd want to do something with this. We thought PLC kind of emerged as something, my understanding of it at least, as something that was going to reflect on what brought us to this point, help us process and maybe grieve and therapeutically work through how we got here collectively, as across our respective cultures.
Mhm.
And that was true, but the thing we couldn't see coming is what it was preparing us for, which I think is how to pattern that kind of use of that specific use of what the internet can be used for, and eschewing all the ways in which it's typically used, and using that, it presenting that in new and emergent situations as the culture gets, has particular crises and different inflection points, I guess. Like we can demonstrate to each other um how to navigate that. Like we have a better toolkit that we work through in different times when we had like an era to reflectively process, what 2020 was about or something. We had a few years to
Right.
develop some tools.
Well, and this is, I also think, I don't know how you'll feel about this. And this is part of why I felt okay sharing this on Jacob's channel. He kind of gave
Mm,
me a carte blanche for whatever I wanted to do, and just said, but he's got his interests and he kind of wants it to be stuck on that sort of stuff. I think a
yeah.
ton of Protestants Sunday mornings are just obsessed with Paul. And I love narratives.
Mm,
Narrative is so good. And to me, the majority of what is theology, thinky talky stuff is New Testament writings that are actually commentaries on the stories. How many chapters of Romans are dedicated to characters in Genesis?
yeah,
Right?
that's good.
How are we going to discuss these things using Old Testament references in order to ground them? So we talk about something which is perfect and pure and all this other stuff, but we ground them in the stories of human beings, right? And so I wasn't able to get a group of my friends, like people know that I do a Bible study, and we kind of pitched it to all non-Christians. We got 12 people to say yes. And my wife and I are the only Christians in the group. We were able to pitch it, but the understanding was through story. It's not I stand up and now I'm gonna preach Paul to them or focus on one thing. We're gonna talk
Hmm.
about a story and just see what kind of comes up to the surface on this. Um,
That's nice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then
Hmm.
so even the theology itself is grounded in story, and as like looking at how Christianity understands itself, how many times Jesus grounds his story in a previous story for comparison, for understanding. So if you want to which is one of the reasons why I practice the way that I do, is because Jesus takes Passover and says, "This, I'm doing this." Right? And so the "do this in remembrance of me," to me, this is this tradition, right? Um, which, sorry, going back, Jonathan, is what's the giggling on the reference of Noahidism? The giggling is because I think denominationally, the correct way of saying what I am is that I'm a Messianic Noahide. I'm not a Messianic Jew. I don't pretend to be Jewish, right? I'm a Noahide. I'm I'm still worshiping the God of Israel, and I see that as how we are to understand God is through Israel, through His relationship with Israel. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And I'm not though I'm not I probably wouldn't use the term because I'm not attending a synagogue, but I'm amenable to that characterization, from the stuff that we've talked about over the years,
Mm-hmm.
particularly, with Ephraim and Messiah ben Yosef and stuff that we've
Yeah.
talked about.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
like we're on the same page in terms of how the nations are integrated, how the Ger Toshav are integrated into into the
Yeah.
nation, the messianic people, the covenant community. So that structure rings true for me, historically and theologically.
Mm-hmm.
That's our ancestral route,
Right.
and
Right.
St. Paul talks about that. So I'm with you on that. I just probably wouldn't use the term because I've thought around enough people. And I'm probably not.
Yeah.
I probably would need to formalize a few structures in my life in terms of where I'm going on particular days in order
I,
to own that a bit better.
I'd like to take this and go in two separate directions, and one of them is based on
Yeah,
what Teo
please.
is saying here. How does narrative help with the convincing others thing? Because
Yeah,
I
you were
think
going there.
if we're gonna use this metaphor, I think there's a beautiful place to go with this, which is that
Hmm.
maybe we can't convince people of the flowers, but we
Okay.
can provide the shit. We can provide the narrative, the stories which people can take root in. Like we can allow people to become like, what I have found really valuable was actually creating an environment not where I say this, like this is what you have to believe, but providing a very rabbinic interpretation where I let people come to their own conclusions. And I'll even say, okay,
Okay.
one person thinks this, another person thinks that, right? And like I did no apologetics work, and one of the people in my Bible study now believes that we're all descendants of Noah.
Yeah.
I did not do, I didn't pull, I like wondered, okay, are we going to be talking about, and she was a pharmacist, right? This isn't an uneducated woman that then I'm like, okay, let me pull out the whatever ham stuff on like answers in Genesis and all this other stuff. I just told the story and I said, we're going to take this story seriously. If you don't take it, I don't care how you take it. I don't care. We're not going to debate it at all. We're just going to talk about the story on its own terms. And a whole bunch of people engaged in some pretty beautiful ways. And I just provided the framework, and then people, because I think as a culture, we didn't have a shared flower. We didn't have a shared group of flowers. We had a
Hmm.
shared soil bed.
Hmm.
Right? Because in that
Hmm.
way, you could say that Unitarians and Jews and Christians and all like these weird sort of deists and everything, they did grow out of the same tradition. Because even if they didn't have the same flowers, right? You talk a Thomas Jefferson character, he believed in the stories enough that he's like, let's publish the gospels even without like the miracles, right? Or even like grounding yourself, like literally we talk about it, ground is
Hmm.
dirt, right? Ground, I mean, now people say touch grass, but I think grounding is more important.
I
Yeah.
like that. Hmm.
But so the second thing is that I think as a hopeful place for the future is that one of my hopes related to Messianic Judaism is that it is, first off, it's not a real or Messianic Noahidism, let's call it that, is that it hasn't fully formed yet. So it's not saying, oh, you were right, this guy was right. No, it was these guys who were right. Like in the Didache, early Didache, like Didache is super early, right? It may like second century, right? In the Didache, it says, okay, if you have enough water, you do a full immersion, right? Like a mikvah for baptism. If you don't have the water, you could just do a sprinkling, right? You're in the middle of the desert, which some areas were. You could just take a cup and just pour it on someone. That's fine. That'll be considered fine for a baptism. If you could, fresh water. If you can't, salt water is fine. So it provides what the tradition is, and then it provides exemptions if you're in a tough situation. Like, would God really say this person was not baptized because they were sprinkled, right? The Didache says, no, we'll count both. And so you can see even a splitting of East and West, how you could get two traditions that are very early having two modes of baptism. If you had the Didache as actually what the practice was, you could see that one said, yeah, it doesn't matter. We're going to still try to do the full immersion. And the other one saying, oh, it was so many exemptions to the pouring could in the West become the primary way of doing baptism. But its origin would be in the Jewish form of mikvah, which would be full immersion. So you also see that in the Didache, preference to full immersion, but no problem if we're just doing the pouring. Okay, like it's fine, still counts. And if we take this model as the origin, we could see that maybe the beautiful thing is that everyone's wrong. Everyone was wrong. The full immersion type, yeah, but we can still say that we can take in the people who did the sprinkling. So that's great news for you, right? You're Presbyterian, right? Sprinkle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Perfect, right? And then you take something like, I believe that there's two traditions that communion became. And so one side is something where at the beginning of every single week for Shabbat, you have leavened bread, right? The challah, right? Which is the woven bread, right? You celebrate that every single week, and that's leavened bread. Once a year, you don't though, because you would be celebrating with matzah, because there's no leavened bread allowed in your places.
Yep.
Now, if the Christians were meeting every single week and they were taking from this tradition and they're losing what the foundations are, you could understand why the Orthodox Church would use leavened bread, which is related to Pentecost, and we don't need to get into that right now. But that's part of what you're waiting for, by the way. Your Feast of Weeks, where you're counting the weeks, that's how long it takes to make a sourdough from scratch, right? So you've cleansed out all leavened, which would have been like your starter. You get rid of, and that as you're holding on to it, it would become the sourdough by the time, like, so that you actually have a leavened loaf, right? Because there's yeast in the air, right? Or like, yeah, the bacteria in the air would provide everything, right?
Ambient, yeah.
Yes. So you could see from this tradition, from the Jewish weekly celebrating with a leavened loaf that would be blessed, bread and wine, by the way. So your two blessings are blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, for giving us this bread from the earth, or food from the earth, right? And then the other one is for giving us, like, is the fruit of the vine, right? The wine. So you celebrate Sabbath every single week. Whatever you're eating, you celebrate with bread and wine, right? Which is what Hezi is saying right now, right? Bread and wine. So you can see how it diverged, and you can see what the East that says, no, it has to be leavened, and the West that says it has to be unleavened. You could, and see, Hezi is supporting me here. You could see the origin coming from the one place, and that we could come back together and still say, hey, you celebrated with unleavened bread. That's great. That's perfect. That's image of Passover. Oh, you celebrated with leavened bread. That's great. That's wonderful. You were fulfilling this part. You were fulfilling this Sabbath meal that happened every single week. And then you also get the image of the always, like the weekly meal. That's the every single week, the Sabbath meal. And then you get the other image that's the traditions that are like, no, we're not going to do it every single week. And with some of the most traditional ones, they do it during the time of the Passover because they celebrate it related to Easter, and those things do sometimes line up, right? So sorry, this went in a direction I wasn't expecting. Your thoughts on this?
So yeah, well, it's there's no Jewish reason, in my understanding, to be to treat as irreconcilable conflicts, like two traditions that are looking at whose origin point is the same, and yet they're manifesting. Maybe they're flowering in different manifestations, but they're rooted in the same. Maybe they don't know where their roots are. There's something for you guys, but
Yeah.
you can manifestly see that the roots are in the same place, in the same soil. Relatively, it's very arguable. It's demonstrable, and that's
Yeah.
very exciting.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
it's
then,
very Talmudic in a way to
and
be okay with living in the tension of those particular two interpretations. Even if the people today, the Christians, aren't understanding themselves as being oriented and rooted in that particular shared tradition.
that's right. And
I love it.
it's rooted in stories, which again is root, like what is the dirt? And then we can say we share a common, like
Mhm.
God, Yanni, he comes out to my Bible study every single week. He's not coming up with the same flowers, but he wants to be rooted in the same dirt. He wants
Yeah,
to have conversations or whatever it is. And even this idea, what Matt here is saying, we can provide the stories. And he was talking about testimonies in a little bit, and the importance of testimonies, and like how good it is to
story.
hear
Yeah.
testimonies. That's stories. And why do we like a good redemption story? Like a good redemption story is I want to see the fertilizer that it is rooted in. I want to see the dirt, the mud that produced such a beautiful flower, right? Or whatever it is.
Okay, I see what you're doing. Okay, so maybe I'm very amenable to what you're sketching out, because there's a layer in which the sort of friendship bonds that are happening, not to like break the metaphor too much, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, clearly people are able to enrich each other's soil in this TLC environment. They're fighting Subway. That's why we all met up in a random city in Illinois. You know, so there's something that's networking and connecting us that's genuine and positive and valid and enriching. And
Yeah.
I think there's a narrative strain, which is the narratives of us kind uh, being virtually not alone, and that's a that's a bonding mechanism there. There's probably one beneath that. There's the content that we talk about, which is usually very narrative driven, and then maybe one beneath that is what we're pointing to, the stories that we're pointing to, often the biblical stories that we're pointing to, that people in various modes like to narratively process and work their ways through. It did the particular way that you do it, that you manifest it, I think is well, or just what all you guys together on Thursdays, the way you guys
Mhm.
process it is particularly enriching. So that's kudos to all that. I was being a little impish. I was being a little subversive with my math video, because I was trying to suggest, I was trying to make a
I, I
space
said
for
I said
people.
it wasn't home math. It was ladylike geography. And
Yeah,
then
there you go.
it was still drawings, but it was nice. You did something that was
Yeah.
very very nice. Not
I was with my ladylike geography, I was trying to indicate that if clearly people want to and feel that they are being changed by
yeah.
these relationships. So if that's the case, we just have to investigate what that is, because doing a 2-hour live stream about our pet topic um, is demonstrably not where the success is happening.
So the
There's
word
something else
for
going on. Yeah.
harden, when God hardens Pharaoh's heart, it's the
Mm.
word for strengthen, to make strong. You make clay hard by making it no longer watered down, right? It's softer based on how watered down it is. And the hardening process is actually making it more what it is. Okay. The fire doesn't make it into something else, because you could actually, you could crush pottery, grind it into until it became finer than sand and mixed water into it. And you could hypothetically turn it back into clay if you did a whole bunch of processes. Okay. So what the fire does is the fire makes it what it already is. Right. So the hardening, or even the becoming saints, is becoming what you already are.
Yeah.
Right. Even the name of my YouTube channel, which I did not take from Elizabeth Oldfield, I called it Fully Alive. First off, that was the word that I'm the what's called. I called it Fully Alive first off as a joke, because I grew up Catholic, and that was the name of the sex ed program. It's called Fully Alive, which is a great euphemism, right? This is just
Yeah.
part of being fully alive.
I feel like Elizabeth Oldfield might have attended those same
yeah, maybe.
those same Catholic youth groups. I don't know.
Yeah. But the other image is that I like to make people fully who they are, right? The idea that we're there's a C.S. Lewis line that says you are becoming. He says, "How boring and similar all the tyrants, how gloriously different all the saints." It's something like that, where he's saying, like, as you get messed up, it's just like people who are messed up are so predictable because they react the same way, right? If you want to really be surprised by someone, look at someone who's healthy, who's fully become who they are.
Yeah. I've always, the opening line of Anna Karenina always troubled me. It's one of my favorite books. It's probably in a way, it's my favorite book of Tolstoy. But his opening line is that all good families are alike, and all bad families are different in different ways, essentially. And that always struck me. I'm like, I don't know if that rings.
I think it's actually the opposite.
I think so.
I think it might be the
It's a great book, but
yeah,
he's not known for his, he's not doing like it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. He's not known for his openers. But yeah. I like that. So you think we do have the power, like we have demonstrated an ability to affect each other profoundly and deeply at our root structures, but we have to think through the mode by which we've been doing that. And if we try to trace that,
right,
we might find that the most successful
we are providing a place of nourishment, maybe is a good way of saying it. But the nourishment is just going to make you what you already are. It's not going to make you a different thing. It'll make you a better, healthier version of what you are, right? And you can still look, Jesus still finds means to curse a fig tree, right? Something that is what it is. But like, can you still find fault in me? Yes, I can. Right. I can see Chad is in the chat. Can you still find fault in someone who's an alcoholic from a family of alcoholics? Yes, you can still find fault. Right. You don't get to say, well, you were born this way and nothing counts. Right.
Okay. I have to say, just a little more color on this is that the people who get clipped by PBK are the ones that I think of as having a lower success rate by their own measurement, because they have a particular topic and they want to see that other people agree with them. And those are the people that don't have the high success. The people that get clipped a little less, frankly, oftentimes the people I like just as much. A lot of people in the chat are included in this. uh, do tend to change their minds, and they just don't get the media
Well,
attention. So
so
maybe that
this is
was.
great. This is actually really great because the major contribution I give to this little corner of the internet is a
Mhm.
Bible study that gets 50 people on it.
Yep.
And the other thing that I do is I jump on for 20 minutes to talk to Luke, and that's what gets clipped. And that clipping of me
Yeah.
does not increase the amount of people I get on the Bible study, and I'm not bothered by it anymore. I like there's things that I could pursue. Like I've done a couple of like evening chats with people, and it'll be on a specific topic. I talked about my version of Christianity with Jacob. And the second time I talked about it, it's called "Should Christians Be Intense?" I think is what it's called, and that got a good number of people. There's like things I do at night, and if I or little conversations with other people, and it'll be
Hmm.
huge, but I don't care. That's not a real effect that I can have. The real effect to me is just week in and week out talking to Sartori and talking with the like Jan God in the comments. And like one of my favorites is like one of the times he came out and dealing with that week to week, just this little sort of thing is like to
Hmm.
me, again, I can't make people find what I do beautiful. I can't be like, hey, this should be so compelling to you. You either get it or you don't. And maybe this is wonderful, maybe it's nothing to you. But to me, it's like this thing that I can't stop doing because I'm so obsessed with how beautiful I think it is. Yeah, seeds and bird poop. That's great.
Yeah. I'm almost wondering if you want to add a little more texture to that insight you had earlier that ties into what you just said of a lot of Christians being fixated on Paul, or like the epistolary approach maybe to the New Testament, that particular segment of the
Yeah,
Christian scriptures,
yeah.
and
I
contrasted
consider.
to the narrative.
Yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
I consider the letters, all of the letters, to be rabbinic commentary on what is the scriptures. Not that they're not inspired, because if you get into all stuff about the Talmud and a whole bunch of other stuff, like you
Yeah, sure.
have within Judaism levels of inspiration. So the Torah would be seen as most inspired, right? So if you see Tanakh, right, or if you just talk to Jacob, Jacob would say his Bible is the Torah, and everything else is built on that, right? So you have the Torah, that is your foundation, and then you have the prophets, which are built on that, and then you have the writings, which are built on that, right? So Tanakh is a Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, right? Like the Torah prophets' writings. Um, and you have these things built on each other in the same way. I think, though I believe Paul is inspired, I don't think he's inspired the way that the Gospels are. I think that's another level. That's a different layer of what it's about. And you were not supposed to even focus on these things until you got the stories deep down in you, right? So you're gonna be like these as you're growing up. And what are you studying? You're studying Torah. That is your foundation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way I can agree with that, I can see that, of course, you won't be able to understand the epistolary nature of what Paul's doing if you don't understand the midrashing he's doing with Torah.
Yeah.
And the only way you get that is you have to kind of be rooted in Torah first and foremost.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
Risto is asking, what if Paul was more inspired? You can't have the commentary be more inspired because again, if you take so many books of the New Testament, their context is the Hebrew Bible. They are rooted in that. So, and this is the way that I did my degree in theology. I did a BA in religious studies, and when I was doing that, you could pick classes in whatever you wanted. I took no more New Testament classes than I had to. Basically, what I did was I took every single Hebrew Bible class that I could, and I learned Hebrew, because my thinking was, if this is what they are built on, then the New Testament will make way more sense if I understand the Old Testament, right?
What do you think? Okay, now I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, go nuts.
This is just something I haven't read this directly, but this is just the things you hear passing through, in conversation with rabbinic Jewish friends, is that the commentary is something that you should be focused a lot more on, because that's going to give you your fencing. And then secondary to that, you should focus on Torah, because those are the bright red lines.
This is great, because now I get to say something really controversial, and I get to piss off all my Jewish friends.
Yep.
Is that I think it's an absolute travesty of what Judaism is focused on. I was having a conversation with Donnie about Genesis, and he knows the Talmud better than he knows Genesis. And that's not to shame him. That's what the system is built on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Do you want to know where the fence is that keeps you from falling off the cliff, or do you want to know where the actual cliff is? How do you want to find out the hard way? That's the reasoning, right? But
the problem is, like, Jacob says he doesn't know any actual Jews who converted to Christianity. And I knew one. And one of the things he said
I know a lot.
Is that it was a while into for some people, they are surprised when they stop and think and realize what the source of the material is, because they will actually say, oh, I thought that was in Genesis, right? And it'll be like, no, that was a tradition that went alongside with it. And my dad was like this with Catholicism. He was convinced that somewhere the woman who wipes Jesus's face is named, and her name is Veronica. Because in Catholicism, you know that that's what it is. And you're like, okay, it's not in this gospel. I'm sure it's in another gospel, right? So
same with like mother, like Mary's mother's name or something.
Right. It must be in there somewhere in the back. I'm sure of it, right?
Yep.
And those things get blended into each other, right? And so that's part of what I don't want to. I'm glad that you brought it up, but yeah, I think that especially with the different directions that people go in, it's like these are presuppositions that people are picking up, and that's meaning, okay, we're going in all these different directions, which is another reason why I want to go to the word itself, because I think that is the soil that we're attached to, right? And I think, and which is why, okay, I'm not trying to plug my Bible study. I just keep on using it as an example. To me, that's the beauty of Yon God participating. Makes me super happy. And so does Yoav, who's a secular Jew, right? And Yosef, who is a practicing Jew, feels comfortable participating in it, because he comes in and sets us straight multiple times. Don't get me wrong. Is I feel like that grounding in the text is the most beautiful, like that, and that's where the flowers really come from. And let me say that's where the most interesting bits come from, is the bits that are grounded in the text and talking about the text. And so Hezi is saying, David, is that the impression you get from Yosef or me? No. When I was having some conversations, for instance, we were talking beforehand. Well,
can I be controversial? I mean, that's usually I welcome all the parabiblical stories, but that's usually how the conversation typically, if we're going to talk about Moses, I think more often than not we're talking about Talmudic stories about Moses more than we're talking about the man in Torah as the text. We're not quoting the text.
And
that's not usually how our circles discuss them.
And the purpose of Midrash also is to make things more clear that are already in the text. The problem is that when you get into certain things like where we were talking about it, and I think I will bring in this bit that I thought I wasn't going to talk about, but I will, if you'll give me the leniency to do so, is we started on the phone talking first, where I brought up something that I kind of came to the conclusion of in the middle of Bible study related to the death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination. Mm-hmm. And I related it to something that I learned in the Midrash, and it's a very different. I don't think it's in the text, but I think it illuminates an image that we experienced in the death of Charlie Kirk and in something else as well. So the idea is that within Jewish interpretation, the patriarchs did not break Torah, even though there seems to me, if you're just reading the text, to be multiple places where they seem to really break the Torah. And one of those places, and so a midrash will give a side story that makes it so that they didn't really, the angels didn't eat meat mixed with dairy, even though it was offered to them, even though Abraham offered them both. This is why it didn't count as breaking the rabbinic command not to mix meat and dairy, right? Because he brings out meat and curds, and so then they give an explanation. So part of it, what it says in the text, that Isaac liked to eat the game that his son Esau would hunt for him. The problem is that in kosher, you're supposed to slit the throat. You couldn't shoot something in the heart and it be kosher, right? So that so there's all these conversations about how animals are slaughtered in kosher butcheries versus like non-kosher meat. So the explanation that would be given is that Esau, so how could it be kosher for him to eat hunted game? And the answer is, in the Midrash, is that Esau was such a good shot that he could slit the throat of an animal. Okay, so they're asking, I'm just going to do it this other time because I'm getting to something. And yeah, it's a straw man position. I'm fine with that. We can get into further detail in a minute. 4 times a year, great. Is that it would slit the animal's throat, so it would be a kosher kill. Is the idea? I understand. There's other things. Okay, complete straw man. That's fine. Okay. The reason why this was important to me is that I read this midrash very long time ago, and it stuck in my head. But that meant that when people were talking about the death of Charlie Kirk, and I unfortunately saw the video of it happening, it looked to me like what was described as to how Esau would kill an antelope or whatever, like an animal, that the wild game that he caught. And so this image where people are talking about it in martyrdom language, it is an image of sacrifice. More clearly an image of sacrifice because of the hitting the neck. And that what everyone was talking about beforehand as the situation of a martyrdom, as someone unnecessarily their life being taken as a resemblance of the cause, is, and only the death of Charlie Kirk took this over, was the image of the woman who was on public transit, and then how did she die? The stab to the neck.
And to your point, before that, like, this is well trodden ground at this point. Jonathan Peugeot's made videos on this.
Yeah.
The death of George Floyd is a neck-related situation.
It's
already
sacrifice.
That is already mapped as a sacrificial moment.
As a sacrificial image.
Yeah.
And we are right now in the middle of something. I don't know what flowers are going to grow from this. But this is, like you said, Peugeot says it's the sacrifice that then births something. like the cities that
Yeah.
are founded, the societies that are founded on a first sin or first sacrifice or some sort of an image of this, is that both images line up as a sacrifice that's a neck injury that is like perfect sacrificial imagery.
Yeah. That death becomes generative in some way. There's a black hat and a white hat version that those things could go towards, for sure. Yeah, you've got, like, Rome is built on a Cain and Abel, like, fratricide story, and they were intensely aware as a civilization that of the complexity of that. Of, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? This is very morally complex. This is a founding. That's
And
your point.
so I would actually say, I know that I'm getting stuff from some of the Jewish people in the comments saying that I'm strawmanning the position. But the purpose of the Midrash is to have deeper reflection, to better understand the text itself.
It's good.
It ought to
stuff.
help you see the thing more clearly. And I do think that story, as much as people are saying I'm strawmanning using it for the way that Jewish people would be using it, it does, I think, illuminate what we all just experienced.
Yeah, you're not using it literally. You're not using it as the author of that particular midrashic detail intended, but you are midrashing onto current events, which you are permitted to do.
Yes.
No.
And that the person who was sacrificed is the founder of an organization called Turning Points, is what we talked about before as well on the phone before anyone else was saying it. Turning Point, that this, sacrifice, turning point. And that, did you say right before we were streaming that JD Vance was actually hosting the Charlie Kirk show?
Yeah, that's where it was today that I realized that this was not just another horrible footnote in an endless parade of clown world tragedies. That does something does seem to feel like a turning point if the sitting vice president of the United States is hosting the Charlie Kirk show and interviewing his friends and colleagues at the normal time. I understand to be the time when Charlie Kirk would go live. Now it's the VP, like, from the White House. That's a turning point. Remains to be seen what things are turning into, but it is not just another day, for sure. Yeah, I think those are good insights. Those are very challenging insights. The first time you told me, I think my jaw was on the floor. I don't want to say it's too soon, but it's very difficult to abstract it enough in order to frame it in an interpretive metaphor like that right now. Probably because I'm just too close. It just feels too close right now, but I commend, I always laud your eagerness to jump into these sort of things and provide that interpretive framework. That's what you're best at. It's one of your many strengths.
Thank you. Well, you know what part of that comes from? Sticking in the narratives, not the theology.
Yeah.
The theology is built on the narratives and not the other way around.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah. You did it. You stitched it together.
Okay. You said you could only talk for a short period of time in TLC terms, which is, of course, an hour, as opposed to 4. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Do you any last thoughts?
No, I just I'm doing this from my phone, so I couldn't see the chat. Hope to see all you guys more often. I like everyone that was mentioned that is in the chat. I love talking to you guys.
Look, it was the time I normally do Bible study, but I wasn't doing Bible study. So a ton of people are here, right? Like just like
Hello.
oh sorry, just a whole bunch of folks just coming out
Oh,
who don't
hi.
who don't come out to Bible study. Okay,
Hey,
so
friends.
some come out to Bible study, but yeah,
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 please, like, continue. Like, you, you guys know David. Some of you don't know me very well, but you could like do have Russo with us. Just like push back.
yeah,
This is an
yeah. I love it.
ongoing.
Yeah, very
Just
very
yeah,
glad.
we're here for the dialogos.
Yeah. Yeah, you should. I said you can post this as well because I think we have different people who are different interested in a different way. So feel free to share this yourself.
Okay, thank you.
And what was I going to say? Do you want to promote your channel? What is your channel for people to find you so they can see the original flowers conversation?
Yeah. Let me post. If you give me a moment, I can just post the link in the chat
That would be
by
glorious.
dual wield for just one moment, and hope to not have dead air as I do this.
Yeah, no problem. This is a good conversation. I'll check the chat a little bit, which I've tried not looking at, but then I can't help myself. I look over and then people are saying things and I get stuck. Um, Luke says the only thing that I would push back on is that neither of you talked about personalist knowing, and we said that he's a leaf blown by the wind. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now sorry, I want a comic, and all it is someone talking to like a punk rocker, and someone is asking them how they got into punk rock, and they said, or what they think of punk rock, and they said, I'm only going to be here until the chicks are into something else, something like that, right? Like, what is the next movement that's going to take hold? What does that look like?
I don't even seem to have.
Can you not find your own video?
I can't find your live stream.
Oh, just look for Federecci. Can you
Yeah,
not?
I think he's.
Jacob is easier to find than I am.
The two R's in Federici. No,
It's here. I'll share it on Discourse with you.
there we go. Sorry, we got to do this manually. Sorry, chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, I mean, we would all be sociopaths if we don't actually care about the stuff that we care about enough to want to share it with others, so that it
Yeah.
would be changing and to be changed by others. So if there's a way that we're going to do it, I don't know if it's in our you know, to Luke's point, I don't know if it's just propositional knowledge that's going to do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's good.
there's got to be some kind of way in that actually, which we have been doing, is really the point of our conversation. We have been changing each other's lives for the better, but
Yeah.
it's not. Maybe it's not the way we thought.
Yeah. Matt is saying, nay, it's all punk rock fundamentalists who are left. I will disagree with that. I think there's still people who are fake into punk rock because it makes them look cool. But there is no one who is trying to look cool who is into ska. That's all legit. So ska is the most legitimate of the subgenres. No one is trying to impress anyone by being into ska.
Yeah, the fact that Matt Skankenstein is into ska, he was
So
in the
good.
chat. That's your reference. Yeah, tells
Yeah.
you that it's legit, authentic. There we go. I finally posted the link. So
Excellent.
please tear me a new one. I almost shut down this channel because the last time I made something, Yosef wrote me such a scathing point by point review. He
Beautiful.
checked my homework so hard. I was like, I don't feel like ever making videos anymore. So I'm trying to subversively get
never
around
again.
that by doing a pretty lady
Geography, is that?
geography,
Yeah.
geometry videos.
Yeah.
That
I don't know.
we
Something
can't critique
that's
that as
not
well.
home math, but equally as good.
Mhm.
Okay, check out Matt. Look up MattC. What is your channel called? What is it called?
Well, I was trying to go with the Scrollers podcast, so we could talk about texts and transmission of, like just the papyrusy stuff. And I wanted to interview people that I wanted to kind of get into ancient Near Eastern study folks, and kind of that may still happen. If you guys want to all sub, I can actually convert that into clout to bring professors on and interrogate them about weird, wild, wonderful stuff that you guys enjoy. But I probably need to hit 3 digits before I can do that. So the Scrollers podcast is where
Okay.
we're at.
Okay, awesome. All right. I'm gonna get going. Thank you, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
for
Thank you.
participating in this.
Thank
Joseph
you, chat.
is apologizing. So there's that. I'm gonna share it as well. Sorry, 1 second.
He apologized directly.
Oh, did he?
Long before he did it publicly, which is what counts. So
He's a mensch. Um,
he is.
you, I like this. Matt is a Calvinist. God have mercy. Yeah, may have mercy on us all. Okay.
Yep.
I just shared it so that it'll be on both channels. But now we're gone. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.